Hello, my name is Reverend Mary Huber. I'm pastor of the Community Center of Holistic Healing, and I have a topic of great interest today in the world, and we're going to talk about anxiety and fears. And I have with me Ellen Labgold, who is a licensed clinical social worker. She is also a minister in my organization here at CCWH and has been for quite some time. She also is a very accomplished Reiki master who had her own practice in this before she went into her social work. She has a current practice in Leesburg, Virginia. It's known as the Southlight Counseling Group. So I welcome you today, Ellen, and thank you so much for being part of this because it's a topic that I believe your end of it sees a lot of people with this, and I know people today are becoming more concerned in the world. So,
Well, so thank you, Mary, for having me. I appreciate being here.
well, maybe you could start with about how pervasive is this anxiety and fear in the world, from your perspective?
Well, that's a great question. Honestly, I would have to say pretty much everybody suffers from anxiety and fear. And that's because realistically, it's basically part of our biological makeup. So to go back a little bit to sort of explain the way fear and anxiety works is that remember, we're product of our ancestors, right? And we have ancestors, from 500,000 to 1 million years ago, human beings started becoming human beings. Okay. And over the time, we've been naturally selected for lots of qualities. We turned into, we went from being original Homo sapiens with different body features to who we are now. One of the other things that's happened is our brains have evolved, right? And our brains have evolved to keep us safe. And one of the ways they've evolved to keep us safe is to make us anxious and scared of pretty much everything. So to go a little further with this, there's basically, from a biological perspective, 3 basic types of fear and anxiety that pretty much every human suffers from, okay? The first type of fear and anxiety has to do with safety. Okay. And what I always say is, let's pretend, Mary, that you and I it's 500,000 years ago and we're in a cave. And we're sitting in the cave and we're chilling. And this furry thing goes walking by the front of the cave. And I don't worry about anything. I'm like, everything is good. And you're kind of the nervous Mary type. And I say, hey, Mary, let's go out there and let's go say hello to that thing. Maybe it's friendly. Maybe it'll play with us. Maybe it'll help us, find some food. You say, I'm not going out there. That thing is going to kill us. And I'm like, Mary, you're just being silly. What is wrong with you? That thing's not bad. That thing is going to help us. You say, I'm not going. No way in heck I'm going out there. So guess what? I say, okay, whatever. I'm going by myself. So Ellen goes outside. Well, what's going to happen to Ellen? Right? Now, think about the fact that that's going to happen generation over generation over generation, right? The person who's scared and doesn't take chances with new things, especially scary things, is going to survive and mate with other sexes that are going to do the same thing, right? And the people who are not afraid, they're gone. So do that for 500,000 years. So then you wonder why. Here's an interesting thing. Pretty much everybody's afraid of anything new as an adult. If you've never seen it before and you don't know what it is, you're going to be afraid of it. So that's the first aspect of fear, is safety. Okay. Second aspect of fear has to do with resources. So I always say, let's go back to the cave. Mary, you and I are still sitting there chilling. Somebody brings in a buffalo. We're eating. It's delicious, right? You, who's scared of everything and anxious, says, as you're eating, we need more. There's not enough. There's not enough. I, who's not afraid of anything, says, you know what? You're just a party pooper. I'm going to enjoy this buffalo and I'm not going to think about another buffalo until I've finished this one and I'm hungry again. You, on the other hand, Mary, are like, not enough, not enough, not enough. We need more, 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 more. Well, guess what? Who's going to survive that one? The person who has lots of buffalo piled up, or the one who doesn't even look for food until they're hungry? So again, let's do that for generation or generation or generation. Let's naturally select for that, right? So now we end up in 2024, And you have a population of people who's always afraid of resources. There's never enough. And remember, money represents buffalo, right? So there's never enough money. And think about it. We always want more. Okay. The other thing is you wonder why people run out and get toilet paper when it snows. That's why. That's the aspect of your primitive brain right there when it comes to resources. The third aspect of primitive brain has to do with social connections, right? Social anxiety. And everyone always asks me, it says, oh, I'm socially anxious, and they think they're alone. Guess what? You're not alone. Pretty much everybody is socially anxious. Let's go back to the cave again. We're sitting there. Again, you know me, I don't worry about anything. I don't care if anybody likes me. I don't care if I help out. Not my problem, everybody else's problem. Mary, on the other hand, you're always afraid. Do people like me? Do they not like me? How do I fit in? What do I need to do? You're consciously worried, constantly worried about that, right? Now, resources are scarce. There's not enough for everybody. Who's going to get that buffalo if there's not enough? The person who doesn't care and isn't worried whether people like them or not, or the person who's constantly worried and making sure that they're liked? You can do the math. So again, it's not surprising when you look at those three aspects, which is pretty much the three aspects of life: safety, resources, and social standing, that we've evolved over literally hundreds of thousands of years and been naturally selected to be afraid. And that's
Well,
sort of the basis of it.
I think that would answer a lot of questions for a lot of people, but there are some other aspects that I've been involved with for a long time, and that would be how we, in addition to our long history in the animal world, that we have actually a dual nature as humans, and we have a spiritual side.
Mhm.
And the spiritual genetics that we have are setting us up sometimes from the standpoint of having experiences from what is known as reincarnation, other lives. So sometimes the fears that pop up in people's lives, not all of them, but certainly I guess, irrational or unexplained fear. Why does this person have a fear of this when in the life of that person, there doesn't seem to have been any exposure, et cetera, at all? But there are really good reasons for that soul when they come in to embodiment, because they had some sort of an experience in some lifetime where their life was either in danger or took them off the planet because of the danger they were in. And those I guess irrational fears can be with past life regressions. They found that sometimes the root lies there rather than in the current lifetime. So it's actually quite a complicated thing when it comes to the spiritual genetics. And I talk about spiritual genetics for those who don't understand that there are such a thing, that we have physical genetics that go back back to those cave times, but we also, because everything that is physical in the metaphysical understanding that I have, everything that's physical has a higher component, an exact higher component of that. So when we have physical genetics, we have spiritual genetics. And the spiritual genetics really relate to the soul and the soul's journey through time. Science knows that, and pretty much everybody knows that really there isn't a time as such. We have to have that as a marker for this planet, and so we can all relate to each other. But there is an eternity to deal with. So there is no real time, but we have a sequence of life that have happened. And those lifetimes that have given us these imprints will come forward if we need to handle them. So that if you've been very, very brave in one lifetime and were completely fearless, you came in with the mission to do a piece of work that you were not going to face the fears that you have developed in other lifetimes, that you would have all of that fearlessness built in. But if there's a fear in your life, that is a caution, like you said, Ellen, about your survival for your, how are you going to work life if you have this big concern, even though you have done well and there's no reason to have it. It goes a combination of both things. It's both the lived experience of many lives of many people before us, as well as our own spiritual genetics. They come in and they sort of combine themselves in a lifetime to give us more kind of be more prone in a certain area to have those fears or anxieties rather than some other ones.
Yes,
So,
we call those triggers.
and
We
some
call
are
those
very
triggers.
common.
They're
Yeah.
triggers, right? So you're exactly what you're saying. So triggers, again, we always try to identify when people have anxiety or fear about things, especially in a clinical practice, is where's it coming from? Is it coming from something that happened in our childhood? Like, for example, if we were small and we got stuck in a traffic jam at 3 years old and there was honking and people yelling and screaming, it wouldn't be surprising that we'd be afraid of traffic as an adult, right? Other ones, we don't know where they come from. Like you said, they probably do come from past lives or for epigenesis. Maybe that's the word we want to use. And it is a combination. What's interesting about what you're talking about too is that, when I'm talking about fear, I'm talking about from a physical perspective, right? From the body's perspective, right? And then there's also, I look at the spiritual aspect as what we need to use to temper that, to remind ourselves that, like you said before, that the soul is ongoing, whatever we want to call it. And I say it's semantics, the energy, force, soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, right? That's enduring. That doesn't end, right? That may change form, but it doesn't end. And being stuck in our physical bodies, we're stuck with this constant struggle between the soul or the spirit, which knows no fear, right? There is no such thing as fear for the spirit, whereas the physical body does know fear because, and let's be honest, physical body knows fear because we have memory, whether it's past life memory or real memory of actual trauma to the physical body. So it's kind of an interesting interplay.
It is, and it's something to be working out because some fears that are limiting us, I mean, severely limiting us, those are probably the things that your spiritual design was put in place, sort of a template was put in so that you would awaken this in this lifetime and start handling this, facing your fears, getting over this limitation that you have, because limitations, again, the soul doesn't have any limitations. We have created them over, the course of our lifetimes on this planet. And in general, humanity has created limitations because we share information so much between us that we can generationally, be training the young people to avoid this or that because their ancestors had this trauma of some sort. So you can learn that too from your family situations.
Right.
But it is important to learn to get over, because if it's limiting you in performance and your ability to move on in life, it's so important that we learn uh, how to handle it. And I
Well,
think that's probably where you
yeah,
handle a lot of it
it's
in
a
your
balance. It's a balance, right? Because again, we can't really lean. I mean, we want to lean into the spiritual aspect of that, right? And we want to know, like, look, we're going to continue going on in an energy form regardless, right? So we know that we can accept that. However, the problem is if we have a mission here on Earth, we can't be reckless because the reality is we got to keep this going, right? We get a lot more done sometimes. Well, we get a lot done potentially on the spiritual plane, but there's things that we're supposed to be doing on the physical plane, right? So if I'm not afraid of things, like I can't run off into traffic because you know what, we all pretty much know the way laws of physics work, right? I'm not going to survive that as a physical body, and therefore I can't do the things that I want to be doing. So again, it's an interplay between understanding, first of all, understanding the biological nature of fear, understanding how spiritually fear is not a thing, it's not part of the paradigm, right? And then managing both of them in a way that we can have the best experience we can have on this plane that we're existing, right? And so one of the ways we do that is by sort of observing it, right? Understanding the biological basis, knowing that I'm going to be afraid of everything I've never seen before or I have no experience with, but then saying, okay, well, hold off. It doesn't mean that it's bad because I don't know what it is. So let me sort of explore that a little bit more. Let me see what's going on there. And then I can make a really good decision about whether that fear is, in your term before, rational or irrational. Although I would sort of argue that there is no such thing as irrational fear. A fear is a fear. It's all rational, right? It's whether, like you said earlier, to sort of piggyback on what you said, whether it's helpful or not. Is this fear helpful to me, right? So for example, if I go up to the roof of my house, which is 3 stories up or 2 to 3 stories up, and I decide I want to jump off, there's the fear will kick in that it's not a good idea, right? Now, that's a helpful fear, right? Because that's going to stop me from pretending to fly off my roof. right? However, if I decide I want to go to coffee in a city that I'm not, comfortable driving around with friends I haven't seen forever, that fear I want to kind of evaluate. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Should I honor it, listen to it, and then make a logical decision based on what my actual risk is, as far as going down to town DC or whatever and finding a parking spot, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera.
But I would take some things from my own family that I had a brother who had many, many fears, and they were unfounded, really. But the rest of us didn't understand this, and limited him severely. And the kind of things that he was faced with, he pretty much didn't live much of a life at all. His unfounded and, well, what we thought were irrational fears, because there were nothing in our family history that would give him that. I came to understand that that had a greater meaning in his entire life of why he was here on the planet at all, and his ability or inability to handle it really had other meanings to him. And I came to the understanding that sometimes we are given fears so that we will not act in a certain circumstance. And that is from a soul level, not from a decision that we have made mentally, because we have both lower mind and higher mind. And higher mind is really associated with our soul. A lower mind is the concrete, evaluating mind of the everyday world. And it says, well, this is, should we do this? Should we not do this? But the higher mind is the one that drives us from higher levels of ourselves, or from our soul, or the presence of God within us. And that's the one that will give us the intuition. Intuition, in my understanding, is really accessing, if you're getting great information by going within and looking for the correct answer from a higher source within yourself, then you are accessing the mind of God, so that you can be forewarned, or you can have that kind of element in your life that will help you over a situation or avoid a situation, and not to get involved in it. Because if you don't know that answer, and you can't, your lower mind cannot evaluate it, there could be danger down there. You would have no clue unless your higher mind came in and said, your survival depends on you not going there. So we're going to give you either some kind of a big signal. Fear could be one of them. And the fear that would then have you avoid something could come in that way. Of course, our higher mind can give us many different signals. It doesn't have to be just fear. But
Mhm.
learning to sort things out, I think, is very important. And coming into a sort of the understanding that we can go into, have more faith in that higher guidance that we have within us. And everyone has it, because we come from the level of soul, from spirit,
Mhm.
with a mission, with a design for our life. And it is important that we learn more about ourselves and how we're wired, and what our capabilities, what can we go beyond, and how can we better improve ourselves, both psychologically, and I'm sure you see many people there, and I see and counsel more people from the spiritual side, so that they can get over what they need to get over and get on with life and progress, and have their mission met. I guess we'll call it their mission, and have that kind of a fulfilled life. Because when you have the fulfilled life at the end, you are able to look back and say, I was able to do these things. I enjoyed my life. I had the fullness of life, and I want to, end my life now with a smile on my face and go on.
Like I
And
say,
yeah,
that was one hell of a ride.
well, I've heard, I forget
That's
who
the
said
goal,
that.
right?
Yeah,
It's one hell of a ride, and I knew who I was, and I made choices based on that. Yeah, and to sort of,
I
again,
forget who it said. There was one, I don't know, there was a famous lady who, in the end of her life, she looked at her physician. She said, "Oh, is it all over already?"
ah,
I thought, wow, what a nice life she
here,
had
I don't know if it was, yes,
to
but
have given her that.
yeah,
Uh,
about making choices and understanding yourself and
yeah,
discerning, what fear is primitive reflexive fear, just like your gag reflex, your brain is reflexive, your primitive brain. the brain that is that you're, again, just like you blink your eyes, just like you have a gag reflex. These
Mhm.
things are primitive. These primitive fears will always come in first. That's their job, is to just jump right out and get out of the gates before everything else. And yeah, and it's a fine line. It's tapping into your intuition, like you said, or tapping into spirit, whatever, however people want to look at it. Because the answers are there, and everybody's answers are already in them for themselves. That's one of the things I highlight strongly in my practice with my clients is you have all the answers. They're already there. It's just your job, my job, and your job together, hand in hand, to really shine a light and see what that looks like. And also discern the primitive brain fear from actual, like you said, intuitive fear, like a message that maybe you shouldn't go on Thursday night for this. That is an intuitive message versus a primitive brain reflex that says, don't do anything, stay where you are. You're safe right there. Those are two different things. And I agree with you. I think most people, when we tune in, know the difference between those two voices. What happens is sometimes life gets in the way, or most of the time life gets in the way, and then we don't know that. And then we don't know who's talking. Is it that primitive brain reflex, or is it really my intuition or a higher source talking? And that's the key, is discerning the two. That's
Yes,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah, today, particularly today's world, because we have so many things going on outside, and we are now told that most of what we're being fed is absolutely false. We don't know what's true, what isn't true. It has confused people, and I think confusion is a terrible place to be, because you don't get to understand, what am I looking at here? Should I be afraid of this? Should I not? Because you don't know, everything around you is in such turmoil. And that is where I believe that people get lost in. I guess I'm gonna say, from the spiritual perspective, people have been losing faith. And I think faith not only in government, in some society, the things that are going on in society. I think they're losing faith in God. And the fact that the counter to all of this is the God presence within the individual is so important, not to lose the faith in that. That's why our organization has this wonderful faith, hope, and charity affirmations. And I believe that that's important to take. When you're in the throes of it, it's hard to stop. You don't know what to do. It's confusing. You're fearful. What am I doing to do here? I think it's important to learn how to quiet down, to center, and to ground yourself, so that you can then come from that better space. And at that point, from the spiritual perspective, you would want to do an affirmation that would be very positive on behalf of your own integrity of your whole self, your body, mind, and spirit, that would, that God is present. Our faith affirmation said that that I have faith in the omnipresence of my divinity. That's what is really said in the faith affirmation, that God, the presence of your higher self that is in complete control of you. And from just being aware of that, to know that you don't have anything to really be concerned about. Because as a soul coming in, from my perspective and from my training, we are set up for success. We're not set up for failure. We're set up to face some challenges so that we can exercise our spiritual muscles, so that we can grow, and to make those decisions, get over those humps in our life and the things that come at us, and come up with something creative, come up with something productive, do something really good and useful for yourself and the world. But it's having that understanding that you're always going to have a presence with you that is there to help you. And whatever happens, it's going to be all right. And having that faith that instead of thinking of being light and dark and there's evil and there's no evil, why don't you think that there is just light? Think of yourself as being bathed in a world of light, because that's where your higher self comes from. That's what your divinity is, all around you at all times. And I think learning those kind of things that would be useful in bad situations, where you can pull that back. But I believe that people, when from the spiritual standpoint, would learn to quiet, center, ground, and then do a wonderful affirmation. I recommend the Faith, Hope, and Charity affirmations because our founder for this organization was an intuitive channel of the highest kind. She brought in from spirit these affirmations that balance our body, mind, and spirit. And they're wonderful, even if you don't really get the sense of every word of it, but saying it will give your soul a nice little respite. And positive affirmations, there are those that are not as effective as others because they won't address the deeper levels of self. And I think when people learn to pray more effectively, an effective prayer is actually believing that what you are praying for is a reality and is already being answered, rather than this desperate prayer of you're hoping, and grabbing and not really believing that there is such a thing, but you just are desperate. So desperation is not a good place to be in either, but it's a place to start. And when you pray and you can settle back and be more understanding that your higher values of, well, truth, honor, wisdom, love, fairness, compassion, and all of those, when you can activate those and you're really activating them in your life, then you can begin to see yourself as being really protected, really centered, and under the presence of a higher power that is not the government, and it's not the person who's trying to convince you of something, but the power within you that is always where you're going to be, where you're going to go back to anyway when you leave this planet. You want to be in good shape when you go back. So when we face our fears, it's, as I said, courage to face your fears. Courage isn't not being afraid. It's just going ahead and trying it out anyway and see where it goes and do the best you can. So it's hard. And I'm going to say that right now. When we talked about this topic, Ellen, I was thinking it's easy to talk about it when you're not in fear. Or you're not anxious about
Well, I was
something.
gonna say, I think that, yeah, I think everything you're saying is wonderful. But I always go back to the human aspect, and I'm really mindful to validate that it's not easy and that there is a constant conflict between, like I said, the spiritual aspect and the physical body. And it's going to be that way. We can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, all I have to do is, again, and I agree with everything you're saying, but it's not that easy. I always tell people it's simple, but it ain't easy. Because remember, we're designed to be hooked into all of that negative. We are. It's always going to be a constant struggle. So that's what I'm saying, to normalize it and to validate it for people, because otherwise I think we isolate people. They sort of, or we marginalize them, because it's like, wait a second, how come I don't get this? How come I struggle with this? How come I pray all day and I'm still afraid? Well,
Mhm.
and I'm here to tell you, you're still afraid because guess what? Here's a newsflash, kids. You're human. That's part of being a human. And there's a reason for that. And I don't know what the reason is. Maybe not, somebody does, or God does, or the spirit does. But the rest of us at this point, I would argue, really don't know the reason, right? Why we have this duality in this body that we have. But we do. And I think we have to honor both parts of it, right? And I think we can do all these things that you're talking about. But I also think we have to, one of the ways to do that and be successful is to also acknowledge with some self-compassion that we are human and we are going to be afraid. And that's not going to go away. We can't, again, if I could wave my magic wand and have it go away, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on some talk show and sold 1,000,000 books, which maybe someday I will, who knows? But I don't have the answer and no one really does. But I think normalizing it and saying, yeah, this is going to be a struggle. However, you can come out on top. There is no such thing as winning, but you can come out on top and you can live the life you wanted to live, whatever that looks like.
I guess for our semantics is a little bit differently, because I think that all of this difficulty that we have and fears really are generated because of prior actions by humanity, and we pass it along as though it's a given. And I have a mind now, after all of these years of living, that if I hadn't bought into an awful lot of what the world is teaching me that is a normal thing, I would be much better off than if I had just let more of the spiritual side come in and just say, well, this is what the world is going through, but that's the result of actions that have happened in the past. I'm here to change what I can here for my life and move forward beyond this, whether anyone else, believes this or has any, feels that they have any reason to. But I do not expect this in my life anymore. And I think we have the right as spiritual beings to expect and command what we want in life. And this is why you're looking into even the next minute, let alone the future lives or years of your life, but start imaging that you have the positive side already accomplished. This is what I mean by the scientific prayer is seeing what you want already accomplished. And that is actually the process of creative imagery. But the images are what we put out there in the world and what we expect the universe to give us back, whether we call God or the universe. But this is what we expect. And our standards, as long as we're living at a higher standard of ourselves and being truthful and honorable and all of that with ourselves and with other people, we can command and say what this is what I want for the future is a peaceful world, a better relations and all of those things. And that's what I'm demanding of the universe to return to me, because I'm doing the best I can. And I want coming back to me the best of what I can get back. And I think that the expectation of sometimes of people aren't high enough for themselves. I believe that they feel more like victims than they are in actors on the stage of being the causative factor of what's going to come next. And once we get to that point where we can be actors causing our reality to unfold and understand that that's what we do anyway, and being more positive about life and ourselves and the world, in face of seeing things that seem to be falling apart. Things have to fall apart before you can start building something new. I mean, everybody has to see this isn't working. And unfortunately, the world is seeing a lot of things that aren't working now. And it has upset more people and worried that it's going to just be the end of us all. It's the end of the old stuff. Yes, it's the beginning of something new and wonderful. And I think we start making our own personal plans of how that wonderful should be in our life. And that would help in the pieces of our life where we can settle down to project that out there. But it has to do with kind of commanding ourselves in a different way and how we're going to approach life. We don't have to be frazzled and, that emotionally reactive, frizzing out when something happens. You just say something to people, and if they don't like it, or if it's very deeply ingrained that it's a really bad thing, they go up in flames. And it's like, oh my goodness, you didn't. That's when people can't even have a conversation about something. It's reactive rather than active, and reactive states are not good.
I say responsive versus so what I'm arguing for is responsive versus reactive.
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
is really taking it in. That's what I'm saying, is acknowledging, and again, yeah, it's semantics. I agree with what you're saying, but I'm also saying is that it is in our nature to be reactive because that's what evolution has done for us, whether we like it or not. And again, lots of times it saves our lives, right? Because we have this reactive response. But again, with a lot of things, it's our nature to be this way because that's the biological nature of fear, and it exists, but we can be responsive and not reactive, or if we are reactive, we can take a step back and evaluate the reactivity and make a change for the better. Yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, I'm all in on creative visualization and manifesting all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think, and again, this is not victim making people victims. I think you're less of a victim when you understand where it's coming from. It's like stopping the struggle. We're no longer going to struggle with this anymore. We're no more going to say this is like, why am I this way, and what's making me this way, and why am I suffering? We don't want to suffer anymore, right? By understanding how we are, we don't suffer. We go, okay, that's the way it goes. It is what it is. I don't suffer because my hair's not brown anymore. I go, it's gray blonde. That's the way it is. you know? So I think it's kind of the same thing, we understand the nature of ourselves. It's just all about that. And I found that in my practice, when I work with people from that perspective, it's really, really profound. And people do so much better than the old style of type of therapy, which was really about, that's a whole nother thing. That's not what this is about, our little talk here, but it just makes a difference, and it does.
It does. And I was, as Michelle, our founder, has always was teaching us about reactivity. When we have a body system and a spirit system, the mind belongs to the spirit, emotions belong to the body. When you leave the physical plane, you do not take your emotions with
Mhm.
you.
100%.
Emotions belong on the physical, and the emotional part is the reactive part. You just, something emotionally triggers you, and and that comes from a held belief. The held belief is the thing that makes you have that belief system that can be triggered, and it puts an emotion out there. So the
Right,
understanding that I have is that. So you don't want to be reactive. You want to stop and think,
right.
okay, I'm really upset about this. And why am I upset about this? If people would stop a bit, pause, and get into the
That
mind,
we're
they
saying
would
the same
go
thing.
further down the road than they
Right,
are
right.
when
But what
they're.
I'm saying here is a little bit different. Yes, the end result, I think we agree on, but what I'm saying is yes, 100%. But remember, the brain is a primitive brain function. It's almost like if I told you I'm going to do a little swab to test you for COVID or some other darn thing down your throat, you literally could not, or I can't, at least I could tell you that much. I can't say, okay, don't gag and not gag. I'm going to gag, right? These thought processes, these fear responses, that's what I'm saying earlier, are just the same as your gag reflex. They're no different. That's why they come so fast and furious. That's why they're so negative. That's why, whether we like it or not, when there's a crash on the other side of the road, we all do this, right? I'm not going to do them. Yeah, I'm going to do it because these are primitive brain functions. They are in the same category as a gag reflex, as a blink reflex. We can't control those. Yes, when they happen, can we evaluate them and say, okay, was that a good response or not? No, that was not a good response because it's out of line with what happened. But they're going to be that way regardless. And they have to be from a biological standpoint, because if you had time to decipher how you should react, it might not be Mary saying something, unfriendly to me. It might be a bear that's going to eat me. And so it goes against the logic of it. So I agree with you. Yes, it's our job as spiritual beings to evaluate our reactivity, but also to know that it's part of who we are. Until we lose this body, it's going to be there, just like everything else, the limitations.
I
It's a
see,
limitation
that's where
of the
we
body.
disagree. That's where
And
we
we can
disagree.
disagree. I'm totally okay disagreeing.
Because you have the capability to change and to become the spiritual being that you are, especially now. This is no longer, as Michelle said, the survival of the physically fittest. It's now the survival of the spiritually fittest, which means that your understanding of yourself as a spiritual being is going to be the most important thing. And if that you really truly grab hold of that, then you know that you have a higher mind, and the mind is not the brain. The mind uses the brain to the capacity that the brain can allow it to happen, but the mind is vast for each person. We are connected to the universal mind, but we have an individual mind that belongs to our soul. And that is huge, and it cannot all come in at the same time. So that's why a lot of the capacity of the brain is not being used by more primitive people, which we have been to this point. We are now evolving very quickly, and there are new energies coming into us from sources that I guess I don't really can't tell you where they're coming from, but they're coming from a very high level of dimensionally, and they're coming in to activate more of the brain cells and the capacity of the greater mind to come through, so that you're not going to have the physical primitive responses that will be dominant in you, but you will be developing the spiritual side, which will be able to be more compatible with each other, we'll be more peaceful, and we'll have a greater appreciation of the planet and life in general, and be able to live a really good, truthful, and productive and fruitful life, because the primitive brain now is not in the one that we are really going to be dealing with
Right.
coming in the future. We are at the cusp where this is going to be, those who have to do that are going to be in a very different place than those who are able to go on and be living and performing and being that person who is coming from a very different ideology than the
Right.
old way of living. So
But
that's
right now, yeah, I agree with you. That sounds great, but right now we're not in that space. And again,
but Ellen, you don't understand how close it is.
right, but
This
doesn't,
is
right.
some of the big
Yeah,
things that are going on now.
I,
We're
I,
not looking at 100 years from now. We're looking at maybe a decade from now.
right. But yes, and when we get there, that'll be a little bit of a different conversation. But again, we can agree to disagree. But for me, at this point, again, I don't know a person on this planet that's not going to be afraid if someone puts a gun to their head, just the way it is. And the reason why we're that way is because we have a primitive fear. That's it.
Well, we have our physical body to take care of,
Yes,
and
that's what I'm saying. And that part's going to react.
and
Yeah,
the physical has its own brain,
yes,
its own system. The
that's what,
spiritual has another, but the spiritual inhabits the body,
yes,
depends on the body doing its own work, which means it's going to take care of the survival end and all of that stuff. The higher part that is occupying the body is the one that is giving us all of these other areas, and it will soon be the one that is mostly in control, because then that driving part for the body won't be quite as I guess difficult for the body to make sure it's all going on. You won't have to worry about that anymore. The brain, the higher self will be in complete command of the lower, and
right,
that all of that primitive stuff that we've all had to endure in order to get to this point where we are, did serve us very well. And I certainly appreciate that I'm here and you're here on the planet.
I agree with you. It doesn't
Human
serve us
beings,
well.
and we're here and having this conversation. So
It doesn't
yeah,
serve us well. That's the problem. And that's,
I
I
think
think we
I
agree.
see it as a beautiful future for everyone, that just hang in there and keep working on yourself, keep, doing your going to your therapist and listening to doing those exercises they're given, and finding a spiritual group that you can relate to that one that matches hopefully a more emerging, newer consciousness of uh, possibilities and the future of being brighter and being around more positive people. Because I can tell you, even from looking at different families and the disappointments they have in some people who are still sliding on the wrong side of the society, and they are pulling to themselves people who are not of a higher mind or higher, I guess, evolvement. They are going with less positive people who think that the world is, disintegrating, and they're just going to go with it, as opposed to the rest of their family that is picked up and they're bright and they're achieving and they're going on and they're hopeful and positive. So we have that division even in families today, which is sad, because it's when you see somebody who isn't making that progress, it's really hard. Um, but that's kind of the dichotomy in society now, where we're at the old is going and the new is coming in, and the two are looking at each other like, then maybe don't quite explain. You can't explain to somebody you're going into drugs, and you're going into this really bad behaviors, not just drugs, whatever else they're doing, because you are afraid, possibly, or because you feel you aren't as good as, or because you've been running with the wrong crowd, which is an older expression, but people who think poorly, and they contaminate each other. And if you can pull yourself out of that and move along with people who think better of themselves and humanity and the future and growth, and the being more spiritually oriented, you're going to pull yourself up. So that's part of it too, is putting yourself into a better companionship, I guess, in life would be very helpful. But well, we know likes attract, so you have to get yourself out of it somehow. So I'm sure that you're very busy in your professional life, helping that you people in your very efficient way. I know you have a program you have to offer people too that
So,
deals with overcoming fears and
yeah. So
yeah.
basically, yeah. So I basically come from what's called an ACT perspective, which is a evolved version of traditional therapy, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's really basically one of the cornerstones of ACT is this concept of primitive brain. And it's really about stopping the struggle and realizing like making choices based on who you are. There's a lot of there's spiritual aspects to that, depending on the clients that I work with, you know, where they are. I meet people where they are. That's a classic therapies type statement. But yeah, and it's about that, understanding how your brain works, the primitive brain, and working with it instead of fighting it, because until this true new age shows up with all of us, we're still stuck with what we've got in this moment. Um, and really just again, connecting to who we are and our higher selves and making choices based on that and looking at things as helpful or versus unhelpful, not really right or wrong, because you said this earlier and I completely agree. You know, we are socially constructed to think certain things and be certain ways. And the one thing I do with a lot of people is I work to deconstruct that so they can
Mhm.
connect to who they really are. So yeah. So I do a lot of that. I'm passionate about it because I see really great results with that. And people do really well with that type of therapy. It's really neat.
Well, you're very well trained, and I would love to recommend everybody to go to you, Ellen, but I know you have. I'm very, very, very happy that we had this conversation today. I
It's been
hope
fun.
people will get something from it and enjoy it, and look for help if you need it in psychology or a therapy of some sort, or go to a spiritual group who has very positive leanings in a new direction for you, because you really need to be around positive people now and to be part of the world in a different way than we've been taught to be in the world. I know I have not been taught to be in a very positive way in the world at all times, but to be more reactive in my life. And I had to work a long time to get out of that. And I'm still working on it. I don't know if I'll achieve it by the end of my life, but I'm hopefully getting there.
Fighting that
I'm
primitive
better
brain.
off than I was. So I think everybody needs to take heart. It might take a little bit of time, but the journey is worth it. The journey is so worth it. And to have that new version of yourself out there is so wonderful, and know that you can look back in life and feel good about your life and feel good about everything that you were part of. So thank you, Ellen, for all you do. And I hope to see you again on another broadcast, and we'll
Yeah.
see what we can do to bring some other topic up, perhaps.
Well, thank you for having me and ditto on all that. We appreciate everything you do and spreading the light and the love. It's important. It is really important. So I appreciate you and I appreciate everybody who's watching. So yes.
Okay. Well, for those who do not know us as well, you come to our website, ccwh.com, and open our website up. We have a YouTube channel, and you can find all of our meditations on there, our chapel services, and we are building up our classes as far as that playlist goes. And I hope you will get a lot out of it and come back to it frequently. I think we have something special to offer people. So thank you all for coming today, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.